A lot for me. All right. So I am Joey Only, they call me. And I'm going to talk to you for a while. I'm going to tell you things that probably you're not going to hear in Gary Horley's class, if that's who you're learning your S700s with. One tree planting crew that we worked with, they were a Type 3 contract company, and they were all tree planters, but their crew boss was a native guy. And of course, that's they all called him chief, and there was this, he was a really good crew boss too, so I just felt like there was a level of disrespect in that. I had called my crew bosses in the past chief, but also I'm a structural firefighter, and I call my boss chief. So it's, you know, I didn't mean nothing by it. So those kind of things bother me, right? Seeing that from a distance. But then if you're an all-native crew, you're gonna have some of the opposite too, where you're gonna have some of these white crews that treat you like you're idiots. And I've seen this as well, and with the same company, as a matter of fact, when I was a Type 2 advanced firefighter with ITF, and they decided that they were the bosses of us, and we sat there throughout the day, doing less but outworking them because we were smarter. We had way more experience, way more foot time on the ground. So I mean, you might find yourself in some of these tree planters who were, you know, maybe they're city kids, maybe they have these sort of idealistic view of the way the world should be, and maybe they've never really suffered. Maybe you have, so they don't understand the kind of intestinal fortitude. They might not have ever experienced a war zone. And so I sometimes say to when I'm teaching structural firefighters, you know, that's the closest thing to war you're ever going to experience. And to them, that's kind of like a whoa. But if I say that to some First Nations people, a lot of you have experienced war conditions, or your families have. You know what that's like, right? So there's like, who do you want to go to battle with? You want to go to battle with people who are tough and smart and collected. And that's who I've often been with. So I have my own unique perspectives on all this. I'm going to start at some basics. And maybe you already know this shit, so sorry. But I mean, some of this stuff you're going to hear, you're going to get back on your S100 tests when you take your S100s. So, I mean, you can either write notes now, or you can keep paying your drums, which is totally fine by me, because it'll be on my YouTube channel tomorrow. And if you think that there's something really interesting you heard, you can go to Joey Only Caribou Weather Dude, subscribe, and help me out. If you just can't get enough.
Is BC Forest Firefighter, or is it Joey Only?
Joey Only Caribou Weather Dude is my page channel.
Okay, I see it.
So this will all go up on there, and then I might edit some of that stuff out that the rest of the world doesn't need to hear. So how I want to do this too is very informally, because it's not your S100 course. So I'd like to, you know, basically if you have questions at any point, you know, we're here to have discussion as much as me talk at you, right? So that's really key, because you won't have time in other courses to necessarily get that one-on-one with your teacher. I mean, unless you're me and you say, hey Gary, let's go for lunch. You know, I got to sit with Gary and have lunch with him, right? Ask him about the course. Not everyone's going to do that. So I'm going to talk to you first of all about the different kinds of crews that are out there, and some of the places you may find yourself in the future fitting in or not fitting in, or making your decisions. So there's two kinds of firefighters. Of course, we have our wildland firefighters, and we have structural firefighters. And then somewhere in the middle is interface fire, which is, as you may know, when a fire is bordering or within the limits of a town. Therefore, you may have structural firefighters responding. You may have structural units. There's several structural units that specifically are there for interface fires. I know one of the commanders of one of those units, who's a legend. So what I would say to you is, now wildland and structural firefighting are really, really different things for a lot of reasons, but there's some real basics that are the same still, right? Which is the heat, the battle, the structure of command, the cooperation. But you're going to have different clothes, you're going to have different machines, you're going to have different protocols, and you're probably going to have to study the fundamentals of firefighting to become a structural firefighter. And that's a heavy book. But what the good news is, if you want to become a structural firefighter on top of becoming a wildland firefighter, I mean, almost every volunteer department needs you, right? Your community needs you. And all these skills that are in here, and all these work safe tickets that come to you, whether it's air brakes for running a truck, whether it's fall protection tickets that I have, you're gonna get for free access to a lot of training to make you just that much more of a badass when it comes to firefighting, right? So they are two separate things, but I encourage you, if you have a good firefighting season, you get the feel for it, and you're like, I like this, come home and join your department. I've taken a leave for a month from being training officer, so that's why my chops are growing in a little bit. Don't have to keep my face clean for the SCBA until I get back to responding. So that is one thing definitely about structural. You can't be a dirtball quite the same way. And you see some of the wildland firefighting companies, and you know, we're dirtballs, and especially after you come out of the bush, just black from head to toe. Some people like to purposely make themselves as charcoaly as possible, you know. Yeah, I've never really been that kind of guy. I don't need to touch my face. So you have structural and you have wildland. Now within wildland, you're going to have a number of different kinds of organizations and companies and firefighting crews. So you have type 1, type 2, and type 3. That's your three main firefighting crews, right? Your type 1 is almost always is ministry. There's no type 1 non-ministry crew in BC. So that would be your hell attack, your para-attack, and most likely unit crew. And if you're real good, you could become initial attack. Initial attack is like a 3-man crew. I don't like the size. I think 4 is better, but I don't pay the bills. So for whatever reason, they decided to go with 3-man crews. And I like 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And if you're in a type 2 crew, you'll be in a 4-person crew. So a 4-pack, right? So the initial attack crews are 3-person crews, and they're the first ones to arrive. There's a lightning strike, someone's out there, dials 55555. I see a lightning strike somewhere on a hill that I don't know how to name. Okay, we'll send a helicopter to track it down. And then they'll probably drop off the 3. And that's the coolest job in firefighting, one of them, because personally for me, the bigger the action isn't always more fun. Like I've been on fires with 200 or 300 people, and then you gotta there's a lot more going on, but a lot more people are watching you too, right? And when you're in a 3-person crew or 4-person crew, and it's just you guys in the bush, no one's watching, right? That's my bent, you know. The unit crews, that's the most likely crew you'll get into if you go ministry, and that's you can't do that this year. It's already passed. But we have a unit crew here, the Blackwater crew out of the Quesnel Airport. So that's unit crews are 20 people crews. That's 4 or 5 packs. 5-pack being 5 people. I don't know how much language you guys know, so forgive me if I'm being super basic. But at the same time, the more you get these terms drilled into your head, the more they're going to be there readily available for you, right? So that's just the thing. And then you have, of course, like I said, your para-attack, which is like real special. They drop in with a parachute. And your heli attack, some of you would be small enough to be in those kind of crews. I know when at division when they said, how much are you? I said, almost 200 pounds, kind of lying. So no, you're out for heli attack. To be honest, I'm 42. I can still pass fitness tests, but not like the 22-year-olds can, right? So my hope of ever being a type 1 firefighter, I think, has dwindled, and I've given up on it. But I have tried out, and you do this fitness test to get in, right, first of all. And it's, have you ever heard of the beep test? So what the beep test is, it's this unique form of hell and punishment that some fucking sick maniac came up with. And what you do, it's about the distance of this room, and everyone starts on one line, and they put this radio on that's got a CD, and what the CD does is this beep, and beep, and then you run to the other line, and you get there, and then you have to wait for the beep, and then you run back to this line. What happens is every 30 seconds the beep gets a little faster, and when it gets faster, you proceed to the next level. So you can't fail the beep test. There's no pass or fail the way there is, say, with a hose pack test, which is like, you didn't make the time, you're out. But what they do is they sit down in the interview with you, and they'll say, ask you all these questions and see how good you and how much knowledge you have. If you're a structural firefighter too, they'll look at that. They'll add up your scores, and then they take your beep test score and add that up, and that's how you get the call. So I did always really good on the interviews, and I got to level 8 both in the beep test, which just about killed me. I was about puking, and then there was still these long-legged 23-year-olds just going to a level 11. It's like, I'm out. So that's your type 1 crews, right? Now your type 2 crew is a type 2 advanced crew, as they're often called, and I've been on some of these. There's pluses and negatives to being a type 2 firefighter. The plus would be if it's a really busy season, yes, you're in the money. The negative would be if it's a really dead season, you might sit in a hotel like I have before for 2 months without a call. And that's a unique kind of hell. You get minimum wage on standby. So you still get paid, but then you sit there and look at it, it's like, I just spent 2 months in Kamloops doing nothing, making minimum wage. I could have been selling firewood and wells and fishing, and so in that way, we got shut down last year because of COVID, and it was a dead season. And I was quite happy to get free government money and fish all summer. It was awesome. So your type 2 crews, they are on call, on standby, and you are first responders as a type 2 crew. You're initial attack crew. So the job of the type 2 crew is to generally accompany the initial attack crew. So generally we found ourselves with 3 or 6 2 IA crews, and then our 2 4-packs, which so 8 of us, and then we go and hammer out a fresh fire. And I like those ones that I was saying because it's like a 2-hectare fire, and it's 10 of you in the bush or whatever, 11 of you in the bush, or there's just so much. There's just not that overhead of. It's like you show up in the morning, you go, okay, what are we gonna do, guys? Okay, cool. How about you? Cool. And it's a little more democratic because it can be. You don't have 300 people. Pardon me?
Not as scrambled either.
Yeah, exactly right. So then you have finally your type 3 crews. And that's probably what I'm going to find myself on this year. And type 3 crews are usually known as mop-up crews, and easy to get into one. The fitness test is super simple. You got to carry a piss can on your back. I forget how many kilometers, 3 kilometers in less than 30 minutes or something like that, right? So it's 2 miles. So I can do the type 3 test till I'm 80 years old, I'm pretty sure. On my Dutch side of my family, we all live to be 100, and we've been farmers for 500 years. And I look at my Opa, who just stopped cutting his own firewood at the age of 86, and I think, like, okay. He said to me the one day, he's like, "This can be you when you're 87." Pointing at his firewood, and I said, "Fuck, I gotta run saw for 50 more years." So, your type 3 crews, they're mop-up crews. Now, one of the benefits of being a type 3 crew, though, is often you'll get put on a project fire. So that might be where there's 200 or 300 people. But the good news about it being on a project fire is generally you're going to be there for a 14-day tour. And that's when the money really, buckles down. Whereas when you're a type 2, you're going to get a lot of like 2-3 day fires and then go back to sitting on standby for 3 days. So there is the constant money making that happens at type 2. But then there's, you might have 5 good weeks as a type 3 firefighter, like, oh, it's happening. And the good thing about that too is you can kind of live your life until it happens. But that's the gamble. If you don't have a fire season, the last 2 years we haven't, you find yourself in the position I was some winters going, uh-oh, how am I going to pay the bills? Within your crews, you're going to have several different kinds of jobs that have to be fulfilled, and these are really important. And these are ones too, I want you to think about these jobs because these are really good tickets to get. And these are the kind of tickets that, and I have all of them, so that's why it's hard to turn me down to be on a crew. I'm a weatherman, and know my land, know my mountains, and hey, I got pretty much every ticket except for faller. And I know how to fall trees, but you can't do that without on a work site, right? So your first tickets you're going to look at is your S100, which is what's in this book right here. Then you have to get your S185, your basics of fire, entrapment, and avoidance. From there, now you have those 2 tickets. There's a number of other ones you can get that are just simple crew tickets. These aren't really jobs yet, but I have S212 fire line communications. I have S228 backfiring and back burning. So I have WMIS and TD. If you're in a Type 2 crew, you have to have WMIS and your transport dangerous goods. So, and you have to have in a Type 2 crew, everyone has to be a level 1 first aider. And I think that might be the case now for Type 3 crews as well. But you have to have, for your Type 2 crew, you have 4 people in each crew, and there's 8 of you in your company. Each of these 4-pack crews has to have a level 3 first aider. So that's a huge ticket. And what you'll find too is it's so hard for bosses to find level 3 first aiders that you'll end up like me, where the boss looks at the smartest person on the roster and says, "Can you pass this?" And I said, "I was a first aider in the downtown east side for years." And he said, "Okay." And I got my level 3 ticket paid for. So, in a lot of these cases, in your First Nations, you're going to find there's a lot of opportunity to get courses covered too, right? So take the opportunities. Be like me, have a stack of tickets in your wallet so you can't even hardly sit on them. So you have to have a level 3 first aider. And when you're a level 3 first aider on a Type 2 crew, you're still going to work. You know, it's not a free pass to sit in a truck and eat donuts and wait for someone to come in with some blisters on their feet. This will be like, you'll be out there working, but if you're working in 2 4-packs like we did, I do with ITF, one of the first aiders can do pump duty one day, and then the next day they switch. And the good news of that is that when I have to carry you out of the mountain, I won't be completely bagged and exhausted from, because you know the best way physiologically for the human to operate is on for a day, off for a day, right? Rebuild muscles, recharge. So when you're constantly working, you don't get stronger. You know this from experience, right? So you may find that's the nice part about being the level 3 first aider is you get a little bit of a break in a sense, like, well, I'm also a power saw operator, but because I'm the OFA 3, they generally say, well, no, someone else can be the power saw operator. That way, for any, I mean, I've never had a chainsaw accident, heaven forbid. But if that ever happened, at least, then, you know, it's not me having to treat myself. You know, it's hard to be a trauma medic on your own body. Yeah, I love fallen trees. And as you know, the bigger the tree, the easier the better, right? I hate fallen trees like this because you have a powerful saw and you just get a little bit too zip. Oh, there it is. When you got a big tree, you got time to line her up and yeah, it's good. Stick your wedge. You know what I mean? Like, so the common logic is people think that small trees are safer, but a lot of people get injured with small trees. Speaking of trees, another job on the line that's going to have to be fulfilled in every crew is a danger tree assessor. Does anyone know what a danger tree assessor is?
Yeah, checking the tops of the trees, seeing if there's wind leakers, making sure like if you can tell if wind blows and that's what the trees.
Definitely. The danger tree assessor's job is to declare an area safe for work, essentially, right? So it's by saying what he said, checking the trees, because what'll happen in a forest fire, and I've seen this, is you get an errant wind come in late in the day and trees come down like crazy, you know, and like I've sat there in the bottom of the canyon down in Grand Forks and I heard like the hillside coming down, just, I was like, I'm just gonna sit down here for a while. Everyone else was pulled out, but it wasn't possible for me to get pulled out without going through the danger zone. So as a danger tree assessor, and this is one of the best jobs, and this is why I had to get my danger tree assessor ticket. It's a hard one to get, but once you're in the course, it's not that hard, right? The DTA ticket, what it allows you to do is be the first one to go into a place, you know, and I like being a scout, and I've always been a sole operator out in the bush. And if you have another person who's like you, and there's 2 DTAs in your crew, like how Rodka and I work, where we just, you know, we're here, and then we slowly work our way over here. Being a weatherman and a tornado chaser in the past, I've always had this awareness. And when I'm doing stuff, right, I'm looking down, I'm looking up. And you'll find there's a lot of city people, they walk around like this, and they can't be danger tree assessors. they're not right for the job, right? So you gotta have that skill to look up, and then the more you know about trees, the better, right? When I had my DTA course, it was down in Barrier, and I got the field test, and I come out there, and of course this Barrier is a very different place ecologically than Wells. So there's a number of trees there that I don't have a lot of daily experience with. Not that I've never cut into a fir tree or something like that, but it's like, you know, if you show me a mountain spruce or a balsam, it's like, oh, I cut those down all the time. You show me pines, I know that tree so intimately, right? And I got put on a dead pine tree, and before I even touched the tree, I told him everything that was wrong with it. Its roots are about to go, da 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 da. And he's like, hey, that's a really good assessment. It's like, yeah, I've fallen about 10,000 of these. Like, so it gives you that chance, though, as a danger tree assessor, to get out. You know, it's first thing in the morning, you show up at a place, and then the crew's kind of sitting there waiting, and you take off into the bush, and whatever happens while you're out there is your business, right? So hopefully you're safe and heads up and smart, and you're going to flag off trees that look really bad. For myself, I don't think it's necessary to call fallers in for every tree. I usually just say, hey, let's just avoid that area. We don't need to work there. And because sometimes when we're on a fire with like 10 different crews, the poor, there's only one faller sometimes who's been hired, and the poor guy's getting called around all day, like, we have 2 trees over here, we have 2 trees over here, and then I'm sitting with the native crew, just we're shaking our heads, like, poor guy, like, fucking let him have lunch, you know, just sweating himself sick all day. So you have that right as a danger tree assessor, but of course you're legally liable too when trees come down. So, and the thing about trees coming down is, like, of course, fire burns the roots out, and they're going to come down more frequently. But it doesn't take. I mean, trees are. I'll just give you an example, right? You know, and you'll get this. People are afraid of grizzly bears, right? You know that people are afraid of grizzly bears. But when you look at the statistics, you know, once every 3 years, a bear kills someone in Canada. So I wouldn't bet on those odds in Vegas, right? But trees falling on people is more deadly than goddamn bears, right? And then, well, of course, lightning. Well, that kills a few people in BC most years, and then you know, and then there's traffic accidents. Just getting to the bush. A lot of crews think it's cool to speed into the fight. What's the point? Just get there. Like, you know, you ain't gonna make a big hell of a difference if you're 10 minutes this either side, right? And I'd rather go and explain to an incident commander, oh, sorry, we're late, we couldn't find the fire, or whatever, this happened today. I know it looks bad on us. I'd rather do that than be in an accident and not show up for the fire at all, right? So I kind of went off a tangent there. So yeah, anyways, danger tree assessor, great ticket to have. It's only offered once a year in every region. So it's taught only from the University of Northern British Columbia, and they'll have a course in Quesnel in May, one in Prince George, one in Barrier. So it was cool. I went and did the DTA course in Barrier, and 2 days later we got a call for a fire, and over the radio the red shirts are giving us coordinates for it. And I'm a very map-minded person. I pretty much always know where I am. And that was something that some of the guys, the crew boss, didn't really have. He relied on me for that. And he's like, oh, do you know where that fire is? And he's just a set of raw coordinates. I said, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's almost exactly where we had our DTA course this week. And sure enough, it was about 8 kilometers further up the road. So we just, you know, I look pretty good. I knew exactly where we're going. So yes, you want to be a DTA, it's a good job. And then of course, finally, which we won't talk about much, there's contractors like machine operators and things like that, people who, cats, water tenders, water delivery, because often there's not water in places you're working. Lightning's going to strike the top of the mountain a lot, so you're going to get put at the top of mountains a lot. And as you know, water goes downhill, so you're going to need to bring water up to where you are more often than not. So that's the first segment. Any questions? Right on. So we talked about crew requirements, tickets. Okay. Solidarity and problems. So before I even talk about fire, I just want to pour another coffee quick. It's so good. So that's the other kind of thing that, you know.
Why Auntie was saying, you still gonna watch it because you can still get COVID even if you get the vaccine. So I'm like, what's the point of getting vaccine? It would be like you may as well just get back. You may as well just catch COVID, survive the whole thing, and then you're like immune to it somewhat for so long.
Perhaps, but I've had my lungs drilled into and drained because I had tuberculosis in 2006.
Oh.
And I can't risk getting sick.
Uh-uh.
So I mean, what do you make me sick? I'm gonna burn your house down. But yeah, so hopefully in 2 weeks my immunity will be up.
After giving you the skills to put it out.
Yeah. Well, you know, here's the truth. A lot of firefighters are pyromaniacs. But the big difference between a firefighter and a pyromaniac is that the firefighter knows the difference between right and wrong.
The firefighter knows how to.
You know.
I used to play with fire
But,
when I was a kid.
I still do.
You won't find many firefighters out there who don't just love fire. So, you know, expect that. I remember this one time we were up in the Smithers area, and this tree just went candling up, and it'd been like a day where nothing had happened. Like, we're just mopping up the lawn, and suddenly there's a bunch of trees candling in a black area where they weren't going to go anywhere. But nonetheless, we're like, hey, should we go get it? And Vince is like, yeah, in a minute. It's pretty. Like, yeah, okay. We stood there and had a smoke and watched it. All right, let's go put it out. So you will find there is that. The only difference between pyromaniacs and firefighters is a sense of right and wrong, or you know, the fascination is still the same, right? So within your crew, I'm going to talk about some different kinds of problems I've had or seen in crews. You know, I mentioned some of it, like being on an all-white crew may be problematic for you and difficult, and that's just the straight-up truth. And I don't have to explain that. You know better than me. So the kinds of problems that you do have in crews sometimes, though, the first person who you don't want to be is the hot shot. So what's the hot shot? Is someone who's very proud of themselves. And the hot shot borders on the hero, who's very dangerous. You don't want any heroes in your crew because you're already working your asses off and sweating and you're putting yourself in a dangerous place. No one needs to get hurt. No one needs to make a bad decision. No one needs to make your crew look bad. Right? We're just going to do our job. That's what we're here to do. And your job is going to be plenty tough to begin with, right? So you don't want the hero. And I know I've seen crew bosses who get very arrogant. And I mean, you got to be a little arrogant to be a crew boss. I mean, that's, you know, same with being a musician. I have to portray that I own the room, right? And that I'm in control. But at the same time, you don't want a crew boss who's like, say, I'm the crew boss, and blah, you know, being such a jerk about it.
What?
You know, my
When he steps on the line.
my methodology might be to
I'll probably do the quiet dude, just watch and learn.
I personally, my bent is to be democratic about things, right? So like we're in the truck in the morning, like, well, try to put the right person in the right place to succeed, right? Is one of my philosophies, like, and it's a simple one. Ask people what they want to do today. How do you feel about doing this? Simple, right? But at the same time, if I had to talk to somebody side by side, you got to still enforce that you are in charge. So you might come to them quietly later and say, hey, you questioning me and calling me out in front of everybody is a problem for me. I'm the crew boss, and if need be, I'll send you home tomorrow. Are we clear? You know, that's not being a showboat or a bastard, is it? It's just being, hey, I'm not going to put up with this dude. So the showboat crew boss, I've seen a couple of them. They'll speed into fires. They'll act like they're the king shit. And they're dangerous. Straight up. Within your crew, and because if you end up fighting on some native crews, you might have people who've come from very traumatized backgrounds. Like one of my friends who was on our cruise who, you know, unfortunately we got hoteled up in a place where drugs were easy to find. And then we had first we had a near conflict in the hotel room between myself and him, which I had to stay very cool as he's like screaming in my face while twisted high. You know, why are you so smart? I was like, buddy, I'm smart. I'm not trying to be. He was mad to begin with because I was named number 2 in the crew, and he thought his 7 years more experience should count for more. But crew boss said, well, you're dumb. He's my guy. So he's screaming in my face, right? And "Well, I'm not smart," he yelled. And I said, "That's what you've been told. Don't tell me that, because I don't believe it." You know, and somehow I managed to calm him down enough by just not reacting at all. But then the next day on the line, he's like tweaking and doing dangerous things. He like got himself in the vehicle and tried to drive it, and like, no. And especially when, for myself being the driver of that crew, the insurance for the rented truck was in my name. So, and you know those company bosses, if you're in a contract company, they're not going to forgive you if you trash a truck. So don't let someone else drive the truck if it's your call, right? Then you have sometimes the person who's unprepared for the life. So maybe they're people who come from sort of sheltered environments. The one case, I mean, this might be kind of funny to you, but we had was this. He was a 27-year-old guy. He was still living in his parents' basement, and that's because his dad was a longtime council member, and his life was playing video games, and he didn't know nothing about living on the land or hunting or doing nothing, and he was heavily overweight and not fit to be out there on the line. And before 3 years ago, they didn't have fitness tests for type 3 crews, so you might get people in your crew who just cannot physically keep up, and that's a danger as well. You want to be a firefighter, you got to start doing your push-ups and start running and walking, put some heavy weight in your back and go for a hike, right? Like, you need to be ready when you hit the line.
I was 140 at 17, and it wasn't until I was halfway through 17 started working out on my 105.
So then we had this 27-year-old guy who's, you know, for better or for worse, basically been sheltered in his whole life, the way I'm sure many of you weren't in your communities. And we had to go buy our own food. We got put up on a mountain for 4 days, where there was basically no running water, no camp, no toilets, no food. And so there we are up on top of this, and the dust was like you'd step in it. And I was smart enough every morning that before 20 boots started walking up the hill, I'd take off first and get in front of the line. And even after that, from that fire, I had that dust in my nose and mouth and in my sinuses for a month and a half, I'm sure. That fine powder dust. But here's the poor young guy. We had to buy our own groceries to go, so that, you know, they give us a budget and, hey, here's so much money. Stop and get yourself groceries before you get to the fire scene. So and of course, you know, I was a 40-year-old guy already at that, or maybe I was 39 at the time, and basically lived on my own since I was very young. I know how to feed myself and take care of myself, right? And I don't have, and maybe some of you feel the same. Your parents aren't the chief of the band making tons of money, and you live a friggin' fat life the way this guy did. He didn't know what to do, so he bought himself chips, pop, gummy worms. I mean, when I looked when we got to the fire scene, I looked at his stuff in his bag. I couldn't believe my damn eyes. Like, you're gonna eat this today? Like, which is hilarious because the hose line, the bladder bag was down at the bottom of the mountain. Then we have a hose line that goes up, and then the hose line goes all the way around the fire scene and connects back to the same hose line. So really, if you're at the hose line, to find your way out, all you got to do is go down the hill. So even Ricky got lost, going in circles, trying to find his way off the hose line. And so we had to send somebody back up at night to find him. And then the next day he got dehydrated. He wasn't drinking, you know, your best friend's Gatorade. Don't be drinking chips and pop and eating sugar when you're in 38-degree friggin' weather, because you will get heat exhaustion, or even worse, a potentially life-threatening situation, heat stroke. They are separate
Have a heart
things.
attack. Somebody did that on our fire when we were in Gavin Lake. He was only 19 years old. He lived, but he learned to never, ever drink Monster energy drinks all summer.
Yeah, and there you go.
You might be young, but
No,
it'll still
That
affect your
stuff
body.
will clean grease off of garage floor.
that's a big one, and that's another thing. He was drinking a lot of those energy drinks too,
Yep.
and that's not real energy, right? Real energy comes from the oxygen you breathe, and you know, and maybe a little bit of food too. I mean,
I mean, I can see, like, you get all the necessities you want, like, I don't know.
You think you're getting, but you're not getting.
No,
the
like,
right
you
ones.
get your meats and your vegetables and your breads, I can see somebody getting on a tree, they have water everywhere.
Gatorade is your best friend. If you ever land yourself at a fire attack base, you go right to the food area and you ask for their packages of Gatorade. Then you fill up a bag to keep in your van with your crew, and there's little packages of Gatorade, and you open up your water bottle, pour them in, shake them up. Awesome. And it's 10 in the morning now, and I'm sitting beside him on a log. We're having our first break, and we're just talking like boys. And he's sitting, I'm eating a sandwich, and he's sitting next to me, and and it was like the worst sounding noise I'd ever heard too. He's like, I'm just puking, and I'm like, you're crying out fucking loud, man. Like, so there we had and then of course, because 3 of our crew members in that crew were basically obese, all the heavy work fell on Rodka and I, right? So like, that was a really undesirable situation. Now I was physically able to go in and out of that canyon all week carrying jerry cans of fuel and carrying the Mark III pump, 63 pounds. Get used to carrying them. You know, that's the basic load you need to be ready for. I seen guys on our crew, John Webster from Lytton, native from down there. He's a big guy. I seen him carry 14 hoses down the hill once. And I looked at him. I think my record was like 9 or something, right?
About 7 or 8 or something like that.
I'm 200 pounds, but 9, that's when it starts getting hard to maneuver. So.
Especially when you got 3 or 4 on each arm.
I couldn't even imagine.
Then one around your shoulders.
That's where we were, like, even, because I don't know if the hoses are the same from where we are, because like, we're up in like the mountains where like you have to have the pumps run from the pump to like up with the driller site, and those lines are like, just one is like killer. I was like, oh.
These are
I don't know.
more like 3/4 inch lines. They're pretty much about this thick.
That or your
Econo lines, pretty much.
you're gonna have your main hose length is gonna be the 1.5 hose, which most of you should be able to operate on your own. I mean, in instructional firefighting, you're supposed to have 2 people on a hose. And if you can't handle that hose by yourself, you'd have no business being on hose duty, right? But the Econoline hose is basically a garden hose, and it's got this awesome little attachment that just controls your fire. So you might have obesity, you might have you may have drug abuse in your crew, you may have arrogance, you may have heroes, all things you want to be avoided. The best crew members are people who just show up and are happy to work, right? And you want to be that. You want to have a whole crew of everyone who just shows up like, we're together, yes, let's do it, we're the toughest, we're the best. And what I love about firefighting is that there is a competition between every crew. So you don't go and just chat up with the crew next to you, be their best friend. If you got someone in your crew who's kissing the red shirt's asses too much, you don't really want that. You want your crew to be cool and be a unit together, right? Like, we roll together and we kick ass, and there's that pride you get when you're in a good crew. Man, it's awesome. So yeah, you want to be that hardworking crew, right? I don't know when you guys want to take some breaks or not. We can have a smoke now, because that kind of brings me to the end of. And now, next we'll talk about firefighting actually.